Welcome to this very special edition, playoff edition of our Bleepin City. Joining us to the show, returning to the show for the second time, is Celtics beat writer Noa Dalzell to break it all down. We're going to jump right into it. Noa, welcome to the show. So good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so as we just had a little dry run there. Steph was asking all the important questions, not before record was pressed. Steph, take it away.
Rehearsal. It was a.
I know you were eager to jump right into the playoffs. We got a big matchup tonight, Chicago, Miami.
I know. We do. Sorry, Mike.
No, go for it.
So, Noah, do you have thoughts on kind of like which matchup you see being the best fit for the Celtics?
I mean, I definitely think Chicago is going to be an easier matchup. I do think I'm pretty high on Chicago right now. I think they've turned it around a little. I'm excited about Kobe White. I think he's just a fun player to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Miami's just going to be a tough series. I don't care which five guys you have on the court. Eric Spoelstra is going to get those guys ready to go. They're going to play really good defense. They're going to make things difficult. They're going to be physical. To me, there's an obvious, more challenging matchup here. And certainly, no Jimmy Butler makes Miami a little bit less dangerous, but it doesn't make me think they're not dangerous at all. That's for sure.
That's such a fair point. I feel like Spoelstra especially is like the X factor. Like he's one of the best coaches. We've seen it. And I feel like, he makes them like, equivalent to like a 5 seed the second that the playoffs start.
I don't know. Without Jimmy, though? Without Jimmy?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like they would be. I mean, yeah, they're really physical. They play great defense, but with Jimmy on that team, that team scares me. Without him, I mean, either of the matchups. Like, I don't know how you feel. I feel like the Celtics. Either team would be hard pressed to win one game against the Celtics. I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but do you see either of those teams really giving it a series?
Yeah, I don't think either of them should be. One thing I will say about Jimmy Butler is that he's obviously a very good playoff performer, but he wasn't the main reason why the Celtics lost in the conference finals last year. What scares me about Miami is more about the ability of role players to step up. And again, this time last year, Miami had lost the first play-in game, and everybody was talking about this is it for them. They're going to rebuild. This is terrible season, terrible first play-in game, and then they went on and went to the finals, right?
Crazy run, yeah.
So it doesn't feel everybody's already counting out Miami. I've heard people say they have the pathway of Bulls, Cavs, and they're kind of just already going down that path. And to me, it's just like I'm not going to count them out because I'm just literally looking at history. I'm not even, it's hard to even make a basketball case because the team that we're watching right now, it's not a top basketball team. Right. Then, Miami's been a struggle all season long, with the exception of a couple good stretches. So they definitely still, against my better, my head tells me
inclination,
but yeah, my intuition is like you just can't overlook them.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point too, because I think like part of the X factor with Spoelstra is literally his ability to make switches on the fly and have those role players like find the matchup that somehow, he's able to exploit.
Right.
And they play zone defense against us a lot of the time too, that sends like the Celtics into like fits, so.
Well, gave Chicago fits.
But then I worry
Chicago,
that. Oh, sorry.
Who did the Heat just play?
Philly.
It was giving Philly fits because they were playing zone the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Philly had points. I mean, that was a slog. Like that first half was, and I think Miami did what they like to do, right? And they mucked it up a bit. And had they made a couple more shots, and probably if Jimmy doesn't get hurt, they win that game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And that game too, you could see the refs were really letting the guys play, which
it's going to be. I think
it's going to be like that in the playoffs. So I wasn't scared of Miami before we started talking, Noah. And now I am a little bit. Yeah, make it interesting. Yeah,
make it real. Well, and I also worry that Chicago wouldn't be enough of a challenge in a way. Like, I know Chicago's better than their record shows and the talent is there, but I was misremembering how our season against Chicago went. I was thinking that the games had been closer, and really, like, the closest game we won by 11, and we won one by almost 30 points. So I worry that, like, the Celtics would almost, like, coast too much and have – it's like that fine balance, right?
There's
like,
nothing wrong with blowouts, Steph.
What?
There's nothing wrong with blowouts and sweeps.
No, but, like, you also don't want them to, like, ease.
I get it. You want them to be tested.
So
you want them to be tested. Yeah.
And then they're just sitting around waiting for round 2. And then and you know, then they like think it's like going to be easy, because that's like, I think, again, we're not the team of the past, but historically I feel like that's where there have been some challenges.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say, you know, the main thing that worries me right now is staying healthy, and that's part of why I choose Chicago. And I don't subscribe to the whole, like, Miami tries to injure people, but I do think they play more physically. And if you look at I'm sure if someone actually did an analysis, like, there's a lot of injuries in those games in both sides. And so that's a big reason why I think they'd be good to dodge. But I've been pushing for a Miami Celtics first round matchup for a while now, and I do think it's because it would be a great start to a great playoff run. Is to kind of beat those demons, get revenge for last year, get redemption. It reminds me a little bit of 2022 and how teams were ducking Brooklyn, and then the Celtics swept them. And I think that was a good start to a nearly successful playoff run. Yeah. On the flip side, though, I don't mind a Chicago matchup, and I think, again, this is a different team than the one that we've seen in years past, or maybe they overlook opponents. They had a couple slip-ups this year, but really as little as you could possibly have throughout an 82-game season. And so Chicago, I think, would be a good matchup as well, especially right now. Like, they're playing well. You know, if they come in, if they blow out the Heat tonight or have a great game over the Heat, I think the Celtics are looking at, this is a team that's hot right now. And, you know, they had those losses to Atlanta recently. I don't think they're feeling invincible. I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing that came out of those.
Absolutely.
How's the Celtics' health going into the playoffs?
It's good. I mean, the lingering things that we're most aware of, I know Tillman's been dealing with a little bit of knee swelling. That's just been, honestly, through the course of his career, but especially as of late, he's been on the injury report for that. I think the main thing that probably people are worried about is Jaylen Brown's left hand, because it did seem like it was bothering him in a few of those playoff games those regular season games down the stretch. He has maintained it's not a concern. Actually, nobody's asked about it over the last few practices, so I'll probably ask about it tomorrow at practice, just to get the latest update. That we don't usually get much specifics from Joe.
They're not going to tell you, though, because it's like,
they probably won't say much. But
the guys will be slapping at that hand.
I mean, Jaylen said, you know, I want to play through it so I can get a sense of, like, if it's limiting me or not. So I'm not concerned about it. So I would say that's something to watch, just because that's a weird lingering thing, and it wasn't just like a playing through pain thing. It was like impacting the way that he was holding the ball, and you never want something like that, especially with his left hand. And so so I guess that's one, but that's pretty much it. I mean, Porzingis is in good health. I think Drew is fine. You know, he was dealing with that shoulder thing for a while, but he came back, and it doesn't seem like to have, you know, impacted him at all. So they're in good shape, and I think a lot of people feel confident about their health because they were able to load manage all season. Like, Porzingis missed so many games, but at the end of the day, like, you can load manage all you want, and you land on someone's foot on the first play, and it doesn't matter.
Right? That
was so
Game 7 last year. Game 7. No, that's kind of the luxury of them jumping out to that huge just lead in the standings. They could rest up, which is going to be, I mean, it should be a huge advantage. Who do you think wins the game tonight against the Chicago-Miami game?
I could see it going either way. I think I would probably guess Miami pulls it out. They're just a more proven team. So even though Chicago's a little bit hotter, I think
they're home.
I think they've been there. They have the vets. They have Eric Spoelstra, who's going to come in. I'm sure he'll have some good answers for guys like Kobe White and DeMar DeRozan that have been playing really well. But I don't feel strongly about it, so I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago pulls it out and Miami has a very different summer than most of us were expecting.
One X factor we haven't considered is DeMar DeRozan's daughter going to be at that game?
I heard she was the other night, so I don't know. I don't know if she's planning on it, but that was fun to watch last year.
Oh my goodness,
she got some pipes. So
I hope she doesn't come to Boston. You know, we're gonna have to teach Deuce and Minnie Horford how to scream louder than she does. You know,
I don't think Deuce screams at all. He's like the calmest. He's kind of like a Tatum clone. So
very mellow. What's the vibe and the energy been like? We've heard reports that they've had like these super intense practices, like longer than anything else. Like, how's the like energy and the confidence with the team right now?
Yeah. So Monday's practice was super long. It was very cardio based. Tuesday, I think it was more mental, more execution. They were off Wednesday, or am I getting this confused? They were off. Sorry, that was Tuesday's practice and then Wednesday's practice. They were off yesterday and today. And then tomorrow they'll be practicing again. And I'm sure that'll be very tailored towards the actual first round matchup because they'll only know tonight, right?
Yeah.
But in general, I mean, this team has been really locked in. It's very clear. They were watching old tapes of the 2008 team.
Yeah.
Like there's been, they're pumping in crowd noise, everything. Mm-hmm. But the main thing that I'll just say is that this team has been locked in like all season. So it's not like you had this like light energy all year and now they're switching to playoff mode. Like it's kind of felt like playoff mode all year. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, it hasn't felt like a huge change.
Yeah.
I'm curious how the vibe will feel like in the actual first playoff game, like pregame, postgame, like how different it'll be. Cause this is my first year covering the team. So I've never been, in those rooms before for a playoff run. But, I would just say like, it's not a huge difference because it's been just a pretty unique level of intensity since the beginning of the season.
Yeah. Has there been any like Paul Pierce appearances recently or because I know like he spends a lot of time with the team, like have they had any of the 08 players, obviously outside of Cassell, around them as they're prepping for Sunday?
Yeah, I don't think Pierce has been around like the last few days, but I know he was here a couple weeks ago and he's around all the time. Like I bumped into him in the practice facility a bunch of times this season. So I think he's been like he's not living in Boston, but I think he knows he has a home here whenever he wants. And so he's been making the trip out. I'm sure he'll join them for portions of this playoff run. But to my knowledge, he's not currently with them.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
Kevin Garnett, do you think he'll ever come back for a playoff game?
Was he not in Game 7 last year in the conference finals? I think he was.
Was he?
I think him and Rondo were sitting together.
You know what? You might be right. We were there, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember Rondo was definitely there. Yeah, I know Isaiah Thomas was there, and I think Rondo and
IT was there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think Rondo and Kevin Garnett were sitting together.
Okay, that might be right. Yeah.
No,
yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, I was gonna say, do you find it kind of weird, like how one of the most iconic players, Bird, is so almost detached from the team? Like you barely ever see him in Boston. He met Tatum for the first time at the All-Star game. That's because they fell in his lap because it was in Indiana.
Right.
Do you find that kind of like just kind of weird?
I don't really. I think it might just be more of a personality type thing. Like I think certain guys enjoy being like the legend that comes back and is a thing for folks. And I think that's just probably not. Yeah, but then also the fact that he is like, he is, from Indiana, has been, he was involved with the Pacers for a long time after the fact too. So, it makes sense. I think some people like Kevin Garnett is someone that you can see he's like wants to be the guy in Massachusetts and in Boston, but then also he's still really connected to the Timberwolves and he's constantly sharing stuff about Anthony Edwards. And so I think certain people toe the line of like, I'm going to just be affiliated with this one team that I used to be a part of. Other people don't really want to do the whole thing at all. So I think sometimes it was a little bizarre that like he had literally never met Tatum before. Like,
right.
But
he still hasn't met JB because JB.
I know, it's so weird.
So it's like it's crazy.
I don't read too much into it.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting actually because a lot of the '84 Celtics are in town and doing an event tomorrow. So I'm curious to see if any of them go on Sunday. I mean, I don't know anything. I don't know. I'm just curious, because Bird, McHale, and Parrish are going to be in town. So that would be such a cool, like, if they were all together at the Garden and, they showed them on the Jumbotron, like the place would go crazy. But I have no idea if they'll actually be there.
We'll see.
Wait and see, right? So let's say Chicago wins. It does bring back some good, interesting memories. I know, was the last time they faced Chicago? I know Rondo was. Do you remember that team? I think it was the one. We were the 1, and they were the 8, and we lost the first 2 games at home. We came back and won that series. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then before that, with the Derrick Rose series, we've had some really intriguing past matchups with Chicago. What would you be most forward? What would you be looking most forward to in just the matchups in the Chicago-Boston series?
To me, I'm curious about Kobe White because I think he's not a guy that there is as much film, or I mean, this year he's been really good, but he's still a relatively unknown entity compared to some of the other guys that you'd be facing up against. So just curious to see what that would look like. I think from like a rebounding standpoint, if you have Andre Drummond like at his best, can be a challenge. And over the last stretch of the season here, I think the Celtics struggled a little bit on the board. So that would be one that I just be cognizant of. But ultimately, with that team, I mean, they played each other 4 times this year, and it was definitely Celtics were pretty dominant over Chicago all year. And so to me, if like there's something that goes wrong here, it's more that the Celtics are beating themselves and are just not playing well on their own than anything matchup based that is deterring them.
Absolutely. Do you feel from what you know, I know Keita for the finals in Maine was battling illness. Is he good?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no more recent update on that from him, but I didn't see him at practice yesterday or Wednesday, but I have no reason to think that this is going to be more of a long-term thing.
Okay.
Looking ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
We need to have like a little thing that says, like,
I know.
It's your turn. It's my turn. It's your turn. It's my turn. Looking ahead potentially down the road on second round matchups, what are your thoughts on the potential second round matchups? Either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both interesting. They're a little bit different than maybe what I was. The day before the season ended, there was everything was up for grabs.
It's crazy.
The Bucks messed everything up.
I know, it was pretty wild. And so I think Orlando's a team, and Cleveland, that in the last couple of years they've both been challenging matchups for the Celtics because they're just really physical, kind of youthful. They have somewhat a similar style of play, the two. I mean, there's obviously some differences as well. And so, I don't know who's going to win that series. I guess I'd probably bet Cleveland. Like, I just think Orlando is a team that is making the playoffs for the first time and, like, probably doesn't have a series win in them just yet, although I think eventually they will.
I think the Celtics fit stuff.
Yes. Yeah, they have. But then this year it's been better. I think they were 3-1 against Celtics, or Celtics were 3-1 against Orlando. And so I don't think either of them are terrible matchups for Boston. I think they're much more favorable than like a Knicks or a Bucks even. And so I think they looked at a little bit with how the second round side of the bracket looks. But I'm pretty 50-50 on who's going to – maybe I lean Cleveland, but I'm going either way that series.
And that could actually end up being one of the series that drags, depending on how the teams show up. Like, it could be a 6 or 7 game series potentially if they're relatively evenly matched.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't be shocked. I actually think like if there's a series that's going to the 7 games, I would say that's probably a good candidate for the first round in the East.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you see, like, full playoff picture? What are the keys for the Celtics to, finish the job that they are setting out to do?
Yeah. First and foremost, I would say staying healthy is number one. And then I think secondly is just we make, guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum playing at the level that we know they're capable of playing at, and it seems like that's like an obvious thing, but if they're playing at their best, like if Jason Tatum's playing at the level that he usually plays at in the playoffs, and Jaylen Brown is not hampered by this injury and he's playing the way that he played all season, like I think this team is going to be just nearly impossible to beat. But I don't take those things as certainties, because you just never know how things are going to go, and players slump, and you just hope that the slump doesn't happen in April, in May, or in June. And so that's the things that I'm kind of watching for. I'm not overly worried with anybody in the Eastern Conference from like a strategic standpoint, but I will say on the in the finals, if we're face Denver, that to me is a very difficult matchup, and we obviously watched 2 losses against Denver this year. And so there, I think the big question is, like, what do you do about Jokic, and what do you do about Curry, and can you contain that 2-man duo that nobody's been able to really contain?
Absolutely.
The questions, I think, shift a little bit more to like schematics in the finals, whereas in the Eastern Conference, I think there's I don't see the matchups being the issue.
Yeah, I feel like Denver legitimately could be a series where the home team wins every game. You know, like that. I almost can't envision Denver not being a 7-game series if we face them in the finals.
Yeah, I think so too.
Do you think LA gives Denver a series at all?
What was it?
The Lakers against Denver, first round.
Oh, I mean, I don't think it'll be a sweep. But I could see, I could see them getting a couple games in, but I would be very surprised if the Lakers were able to pull that off over Denver. They just, I think, Denver's like owned the Lakers over the last year. It's been really just going off of history. I think it's a tough one, but there were a lot of competitive games, so you never know. I wouldn't be shocked if it went 6 or 7 even.
Yeah.
I mean, you can never count LeBron out. Speaking of LeBron, and I get a lot of slack from people on this take.
I already know where he's going, and I hate it.
Okay, I would love to see this. Could you ever see possibly LeBron coming to the Celtics to maybe close out his career? I mean, how great would that be for the Celtics?
I don't see it. I think he really hates Boston.
Really?
Thank you. Thank you.
You never know. I mean, we've seen crazier free agency transfers happen. I mean, actually, I don't know if we've seen crazier. That would be up there.
That would be crazy. That would be way.
If Shaq came to the Celtics, I think anything's possible.
Yeah, but Shaq wasn't like a Laker for life, and Shaq didn't hate Boston, and Shaq saw.
LeBron really hates Boston.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
I think it's part of why sometimes he doesn't play. He didn't play this year. I don't think he cares about. Just based on the little things he said over the years, I would be very surprised if he ends up here.
I know he's made comments of the T-shirts they sell outside of the Garden with his name on it. Yeah. But I don't know.
You are the only person.
I think he'd love it. I think he'd love it here, but I guess I'm on that island.
But think about this. This is, and I mean, Mike and I have gone back and forth on this one a million times. But who doesn't play? LeBron's not going to come somewhere to not play. So who's coming off the team for LeBron to be there? Because I'm not moving these guys. So
I mean, I could think of a few. I'm not going to say any names, but to replace that LeBron could replace.
I'm saying, you would have to have one of our top 6 guys not be on our team.
I mean, it's a good problem to have, and that it doesn't necessarily mean that someone would not be on the team. It would just be more of a rotation.
Oh boy. So
how do you think LeBron would fit on this team? No,
he wouldn't.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what kind of role. I mean, if you just plugged him in right now, is it an additional piece? I'm trying to think.
Who do you? That's you.
Yeah, I think he would put him in more of a playmaker role.
He's a great passer.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. That would be weird. I can't even think about it. Yeah.
You could kind of make him like a Magic Johnson point guard type deal.
I don't know why.
Anyways, that's my LeBron take.
Yeah. Do you want to see him in Boston? Is that what this is about?
Oh yes, I do. I was I'm praying that they draft Bronny because he said
that's the worst
thing they can do. I know Bronny is barely making the college, the cut at college, but he declared for the draft, didn't he?
He
declared, but he might not go. I think it's still. Okay. I think he still has the ability to not. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's also in the transfer portal.
So then could you see LeBron? Could you see LeBron then going against his word because he said, "I want to play with my son for a year." Celtics draft Bronny. I mean, that's the path that I'm seeing could happen.
Celtics aren't drafting Bronny. They're not.
They draft Bronny, but you draft Bronny to get LeBron.
Why? We don't need him.
Okay. It's like
I don't think it's gonna happen.
Okay.
Mike has been preaching this for years. This is not new, and it drives me nuts every time.
I'm looking for someone to jump on that bandwagon with me.
No one's gonna agree with you. And Mike doesn't even like LeBron. That's the funny thing about this is that he's not.
It would be a storyline. I mean, we're not. We have plenty of storylines, but it would give us something to write and talk about for sure.
Yeah, but talk about distractions. We're worried about Isaiah Thomas being a distraction. LeBron would be forget it.
Well, there's a piece of this that you forget that LeBron owns part of the Red Sox too. So I mean,
and look what's happening there.
that's a different story.
That's not actually going to help your argument because the Red Sox ownership doesn't care about the Red Sox. So
I know we're up against 4 o'clock. No, do you follow any of the other teams in the city?
Not really, honestly. I really am just basketball. Yeah.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
No, no hockey.
Keep track of like the loose storylines. Like I know the Red Sox are bad and the Bruins are good, but my analysis.
I mean, you weren't joking when you said like basketball is in your family blood. Like, because we had the opportunity to talk to your dad a couple of times, who, by the way, might be the biggest Maine Celtics fan ever.
He's a huge Maine Celtics fan.
It's the cutest thing. Like he is so into the team.
I think it's because he was like a fringe NBA player. Like he was never in the NBA, but he was like there for summer league and things.
Yeah.
And so he like sees himself a little in some of the stories.
He was like, because we talked to him at after game 1 and he had said, even if Noah doesn't come back for game 3, I'll be here, so he was like, he was like loving every second of it. But the first time we met him and your brother had just won a championship that day. Like, you've got like literal basketball, like, oozing out of your family everywhere.
Is your mom into basketball?
No, not really, actually. Tolerates it though. Yeah.
Tolerates it. But she had to go to all the games, right? Like she sat through like all of the.
She has sat through a lot of basketball games over the years. So.
I think it's a pretty cool story though that your dad and your dad went to Israel to play, and that's how you met your mom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, wow. So she doesn't mind it. So she knew what she was getting into. She some people are born into it. She married into it. She knew what was happening. But it's great. Have you, speaking of like big fans, like have you ever met a happier player than Porzingis? Like, it doesn't seem like it. He seems really happy right now. I mean, I am curious how this playoff run's going to go because I think he hasn't faced much adversity in Boston. Like, the media has been really happy with him. And I mean, like the radio, like not just like the people that cover the Celtics, but he's been playing well since he got here, and the team's been going so well. So he hasn't been in that situation that like guys like Marcus Smart or Jaylen Brown have been in, where like they're losing or they're not playing well and they're getting killed. So I'm curious what that will look like. 'Cause eventually, it's going to happen. Yeah, during the playoff run, but maybe at some point. So. But yeah, he's having a good time. He in the games where he doesn't play, like he comes out to the Garden, he just like has a blast with the fans. Yeah,
I've never seen someone smile more. Like from the minute he signed here, like it's every time you see him, he's got a big smile on his face. He loves the fans. Like it's so wonderful to see. But it's crazy. Like when that trade happened, that's a whole other, story, but I couldn't imagine loving Porzingis as much as I do.
Yeah. I think he's won over a lot of fans that were skeptical at first. He came into a different situation. I mean, getting traded for the fan favorite is tough.
For sure.
So I think he's definitely proven himself over the last few months.
Yeah. And people love him.
Are you over Marcus Smart yet?
No. Never. He has to come back and retire a Celtic. And that's my only.
I wouldn't be shocked. I could see it happening.
I really genuinely hope it does. I mean, he loves it here. And I'm not glad he's been injured. I was, however, so glad that he didn't play when he came back. Especially after what Drew said about, going back to Milwaukee. And he was like, I didn't really pay attention. Like I was focused on the game. I couldn't really take it in. For Marcus to be able to really take in the fan appreciation and have that moment, like I feel like that was so special.
Yeah, that was a really cool game for sure.
You picked a good season.
Steph, I know we're up again.
Sorry. I was just gonna say you picked a really good season to start covering the Celtics. I mean,
I know
so many storylines, so many emotions. I just wanted to ask, what was it like at the Garden for Gorman's sort of final game? I know he's
it was really emotional, honestly. Like I think they did a great job just honoring him, and it was everywhere. We got pins, there were shirts, there were halftime ceremony was really awesome. And so I think they did a great job of honoring a really legendary career, and it was very cool. So I enjoyed being there.
Yeah. You couldn't have picked a better year to start your coverage.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously. I mean, they've set the bar high. Anyways, we don't want to keep you, Noah. hopefully we can check in some more as they have a deep playoff run. Thank you so much again, and we'll look forward to talking to you.
Having me.
We just came straight out the gutter. We want everything or nothing. We just coming for your spot on the top, and we want everything above it.